I started talking about Sonata Allegro form with a quote from the Austrian born composer and music theorist Ernst Toch. And I'd like to revisit this as we go forward, talking about the Sonata Allegro form being uh, fundamentally an ABA design. Toke says this: to it, that's ternary form, most of the forms can be traced, regardless of their substructures, proportions, standards, terms. Whence we came, thither we return. After all the blooming and climaxing, after all the turbulence and trepidation. The principle of tripartition, that's ABA, is rooted in nature, in our very existence. That's two significant things I want to point out now in this quote, guys. To it, most forms can be traced. It that is a tall statement for ABA being fundamental to our understanding of musical form. That is a tall statement placing ABA at the top of the mountain, so to speak. Um, One theorist said that it is speaking specifically of Sonata Allegro form, that it is perhaps the greatest achievement of the 18th century, this form that's built on ABA. The second thing that really jumps out at me is him saying that it is rooted in nature, in our very existence. I'm glad that he added that, scholars, because sometimes when we study musical form in the academy, it's easy in this bubble to begin to think that music theory in general um, comes from Western European ideas only, and that Western European culture and art is superior to all other cultures. But when he says that it's in our rooted in our nature, or in nature, in our very existence, that suggests that this ABA structure that we study is a universal phenomenon, that it's not exclusive to, it wasn't invented by European composers. Let me put up another quote by the historian, civil rights leader, and cultural critic, W.E.B. Du Bois. He said this about the Negro spiritual at the turn of the 20th century. It still remains as the singular spiritual heritage of the nation and the greatest gift of the Negro people. Now, there's another tall statement about a style of music. Well, Dr. Dent, what does that have to do with what we're studying today? Both forms, Sonata Allegro form and the Negro spiritual, employ an ABA structure. um, did you know that most Negro spirituals start with a chorus first, then goes to a verse, A, B, and then a return to the chorus, A. The chorus introduces a sentiment of the Negro slave. The verse, the area of development, develops that idea by explaining why the Negro slave was having this sentiment in the A section. Once we get through clarifying clarifying it in the B section, the verse, we go back with now more context and clarity about why the Negro slave was having this particular sentiment in the A section. For instance, take the spiritual. Maybe you all have heard this of the spiritual. Every time I feel the Spirit. Are you familiar with that? Starts here with a chorus. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Well, what is it that is causing him to feel the Spirit? Him or her, the Negro spiritual, gets clarified in the development section, let's say, the verse. Up on the mountain, my Lord spoke. Out of his mouth came fire and smoke. Looked all around me, looked so fine. I asked the Lord if all were mine. Oh, now we know why he's feeling the Spirit. He just had an encounter with Almighty God, and that experience of trepidation and turbulence now explains what is causing him to feel this Spirit. Now we can go back to A and with more context. So every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. A, B, A. Or how about the spiritual, my Lord, what a morning. A couple of years ago, I did an arrangement of this for the MTSU singers. They did a great job performing it. And you can find it online, the performance of it. But the chorus that starts first basically says, my Lord, whew, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning when the stars begin to fall. Well, you got to ask, well, why are the stars falling? Number one. And why is he exclaiming, my Lord? Well, perhaps that part is clear. The stars are falling. So he's, you know, he or she is pretty rattled by this. Well, go to the verse and you find out everything. Um, You'll hear the trumpet sound to wake the nations underground, looking to my God's right hand, right? When the stars begin to fall. Okay, if you listen carefully to the words of that verse, it's describing the second coming of the Lord. There's a text in the Bible that basically they're paraphrasing. It says, for the Lord himself shall descend with a shout and the voice of the archangel and the trump of God. You'll hear the trumpet sound, right? This is a lot of turbulence and trepidation again that the slave is experiencing, that it now explains why the stars are falling, because God just showed up, right? And dead folks started being raised up. That's why the slave is going, my Lord, what a morning. Did you see all of this that's going on? Now we've got context. We can go back. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning when the stars begin to fall. A, B, A. It's rooted. Here's my point. Negro slaves in the early part of the 19th century were not familiar with Sonata Allegro form or being influenced by it when they were creating these beautiful pieces with that exhibited this same structure. Now, not in the same way, I'll grant you that, but you can still see it rooted in nature. Any of you ever heard the phrase, the newly bred and the nearly dead have more in common with each other than those in the middle? Yeah, I still see myself as being in the middle. Don't anyone say, don't anyone comment on that. But I digress. Whence we came, thither we return. It's all right there. It's in our very nature. And so I just wanted to take this little digression, right? A, B, A. I'm in the middle section here in my lecture on Sonata Allegro form. I wanted to take this little area of contrast, moment of contrast, to make sure that we don't see this in a bubble. All right, let's move on.